IVM.
ॐ श्री श्री गुरुपदो भरोसा मातृषार निताय प्रेमानंदे गौर हरि हरि बोलो। हे कृष्ण गौरा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेशु गोपिका कान्तो राधाकान्तो नमोस्तुते। जय राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये।
Wow. And that was Dr. Uttara Chausalkar with us on Audio Gyan. Uttara is a trained Hindustani classical vocalist and in passionate pursuit of aesthetics in music. She has also been following the Baul music of Bengal. After doing her graduation in English literature, she acquired the master's degree in music in 1992. A UGC fellow, Uttara was awarded the doctorate degree in music by SNDT Women's University, Mumbai in 2003. On the traditional side, she has been trained under the able tutelage of the renowned vocalist late Dr. Srimati Sushila G. Pohankar for more than 2 decades. To find out more about her, you can visit uttarachausalkar.com, which is given in the description below also. This audiogan is mainly to unravel the Baul side of her work and explore this brilliant tradition which has its roots in Bengal. So thank you, Uttara, for giving us your time, and it's a real honor to have you on audiogan. Thank you once again for giving us your time. Yeah.
Jai Guru.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure to talk about Baul.
Yeah. I have come up with few questions regarding Baul music and also trying to document as much things as we can. And you introduce with a song which is a form of Baul, right?
Right.
So can you tell us what is Baul? I mean, what's the history behind it? How does it fit in the overall scheme of things?
Right. So Baul is a very old tradition of music, and Baul is a lifestyle. These are fakirs, basically. These are sannyasis who have renounced the world and they are completely devoted to the divine. So you may call the divine as God or anything you wish to, but the Bauls call it the divine. And they have different expressions of the divine. I mean, some of them who are from the Vaishnava Parampara, they believe that the divine is Lord Krishna and Radha together in unison. Then there are the Sufi Bauls who do not say that Baul is like the divine is Allah, or they don't give it a name. They just say that it is the supreme power and that we surrender to the supreme power.
Is Kabir part of the cult?
Not really, because though the thought process is parallel, like whatever philosophy Kabir has written in his verses, the philosophy is much more the same, because even in Maharashtra, the Varkari Sampradaya, the thought process of Varkari Sampradaya is also very parallel with what the Baul philosophy is.
Okay.
So basically all over India we will see that the surrender, the feeling of surrender is the same. But Baul in particular has had 3 influences. We talked about 2, that was Vaishnava Sampradaya and Sufi. So the third influence that Baul has on it is of the Buddhist philosophy.
Oh,
so where again peace and love is the message. So Baul now is like a cult which is following music as its practice of devotion.
Okay.
So then from that practice arises the Baul songs. So Baul songs are the this is like a meditative form of art where you are performing not for yourself, not for the audience, but you are performing as a prayer. So every time a Baul singer sings a song, it is like a prayer to the divine. And surrender is the most important facet of it. So when we talk about the songs now, where did the songs come from? So the Vaishnav Bauls believe that it came from the saint poet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Okay.
So if we talk about the history, I think roughly around 15th century Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was existent. And it seems that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the incarnation of Lord Krishna himself.
Correct.
But how? In a difference. Because he is an incarnation of Krishna and has Radha Bhav in him. So the mentality is of Radha and he is a form of Krishna. But his color is fair because he is Radha Bhav. So he has the color of Radha. So it is believed that he is the incarnation of Lord Krishna and Radha in one. And that's why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was also called as the Gauranga. And he wrote, recited 8 shlokas which are called as the Shikshashtakam.
Okay.
And the Vaishnav Bauls believe that whatever is written in these 8 shlokas is their treatise. So all the songs that come in the Vaishnav Parampara are based on these 8 shlokas. And these 8 shlokas talk only about surrender and using the name chanting. That is which we call as Nam Sankirtan all over India.
Correct.
So chanting the Lord's name is the only purpose of human life. And only that will give you all bliss and all whatever you require in this world will be given to you because you chant the Lord's name.
But so like whatever songs are designed or the way the lyrics are formed, are those originally from those 8 shlokas or they are like I want to just understand the way in at least in Maharashtra we had Tukaram who used to write his own lyrics and then chant them.
Right.
Similarly here were there
Yes.
artists who wrote and then recited or it was like something prescribed already?
Yeah, it is exactly as you say that the artists wrote themselves the song and they started singing them and their followers started following them.
Okay.
So there was one disciple of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who was called as Nitai. So Nitai started Nityananda. That is, Nityananda is called also as Nitai. So he was the one who started writing the songs and started singing them. And then when they were followers. And there were 2 more importantly important contributors in the Baul tradition. One is Lalon Fakir. So Lalon Fakir comes from the Sufi tradition. Because he went through a life situation where he was a Hindu but he got lost and he was looked after by a Muslim and then he was disowned by his own family. So all that shock made him write poetry. So he started writing about why there should be no differences of religion and why should we shed all the differences and we should be like united together because our ultimate goal is reaching the divine.
Correct.
Like ultimate goal is God or ultimate goal is peace.
Yeah.
So he's
or
the one
truth or whatever.
Or truth, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean something which is good. Something that is good in life, something that is blissful is what we need to achieve.
Correct.
So he was one, he was Lalon Fakir and he wrote multifarious songs. Most of the songs are based on these discriminations and how people should grow out of these discriminations. He wants peace basically. He doesn't want these differences. He also has some teachings in his songs.
Okay.
Which are like philosophical teachings, which tell you that, okay, you should not deviate from your goals. You should not be carried away by your vices. All those things. And then there is another Baul who's called as Bhoba Pagla. He's also a very famous Baul. And it is told that he used to, he was like a fakir who is like isolated himself from the world. He used to stay in the trunk of a tree and he used to compose songs. And then people who could hear those songs started following those songs. So even that is a big contribution. And then there are other Bauls who started practicing these songs and they were influenced by the poetry and they wrote their own poetry. So they have been adding to the parampara. And there are also some Pali language songs which are from the Buddhist Charya Giti.
Correct.
So all that has contributed to the Baul Ripatwa.
No, and sorry to like deep dive further into it. So those lyrics who have written are obviously written by saint-like people or in the contemporary time, do people just take that or are there people who are still writing it? Because these are fakir, right? So they have this innate thing to write on their own. So does that happen still?
Yeah, there are still contributors who are writing songs and even then it is still being transported through the oral tradition itself.
Okay.
Now with the modern age, like when I have started learning Baul from Parvati ji, because Parvati ji is a person who's a globetrotter and she has to relate with students and lovers of Baul all over the world. She has started, allowing us to record songs, but with a responsibility that we don't misuse the songs or we don't share them and, make them like popular songs.
Correct.
Because they believe that the song is a prayer.
Correct. It's
And
very sacred.
It's a sacred thing, and basically, more than sacred, they want it to be like a teaching. So, what they say is when you're singing a Baul song, you have to be the song. Now, how do you explain this? Be the song. I mean, you have to really believe what you're singing. Like, for example, if I am singing a song which is about Radha Bhav. So, what is Radha Bhav basically? Radha Bhav is longing for Krishna.
Correct.
We all know, as per the story, that once Krishna moved away from Gokul to Mathura, he never met Radha back again. So Radha was left pining there.
Correct.
So not just Radha, the whole entire Gokul, everybody was left pining.
Correct.
So that pining is the aim of the song. The text of the song. So if I am singing a song of Radha Bhav, I need to believe that I am feeling that. See, I am not Radha. I am a person who is from the modern age.
Correct.
But when I am singing the song, I have to relate to that subject. I have to be Radha and I have to sing what Radha would have sung in that pain or that agony. Okay, because these songs are called as the living wisdom examples. There is a wisdom that has been carried through these songs. And that pining is not just lustful pining like a lover pining for other lover. It is not that. It is actually the human quest to reach the ultimate truth. So if you call the quest as Radha and the truth as Krishna, we can relate it in the modern world also.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Okay.
But this also exist in the traditional classical music also, right?
Yes.
I mean, like if you listen to Bhimsen Joshi, they are in their own trance.
Yeah.
So what differentiates the lyrics only, or what are the differentiators if a person is purely in a trance mode for, say, Khayal music and classical? So how does that differ?
Yeah. Basically, Baul songs are Shabdagan. So the words are the most important ones. So you might find Bauls who are not singing in tune also.
Okay.
But their words will be very perfect and the emotions that they are expressing, that is the most important thing. Whereas in classical music, words are important. It's not that words are not important, but classical music explores the musical side more.
Correct.
Like the musical ideas or the musical wisdom of ragas, which has been carried through traditions. There is a gist in each raga. So every musician strives to explore that gist to the fullest and explain it into the fullest, express it to the fullest. So maybe we can, actually it is not a very good idea to differentiate two different art forms or compare two different art forms, but just for our understanding, we can say that rag music explores the rag wisdom. So it is the musical trance. Which is very musical, which is related to the beat, which is related to the note, which is related to the expression of the singer's voice or the intensity with what he is singing. The words take a little backseat. I won't say that they are not important. They are important. But they are a little lesser important in classical music than in Baul music. Because in Baul music, if you don't know the words by heart, you cannot reach the emotion. And if you are not pronouncing the words right, you don't reach the emotion. So the word pronunciation, the authenticity of the words is very, very important, and the expression, the bhava, because nothing else is important. I can just tell you a short story about a Baul, because Bauls are full of stories. They are very, they have a lot of animated things in their life. So there was this Baul fakir who was singing in a Baul Mela. Baul Mela is a gathering of Bauls where everybody sings. All Bauls will sing. So he was playing the ektara and he was singing. After a while, one of the Bauls realized that there is no string on the ektara. So
There's a string?
No string on the ektara. But he's still strumming it. Okay. So this Baul went and asked the other Baul that you are singing the song, but there's no string on your ektara. He said, how does it matter? Don't you get the bhava in the song? If you get the bhava, that's it. Wow. I don't have money to buy the string, so I don't have a string. I can still sing.
Brilliant. Yeah.
These are the stories.
Yeah. So Uttara, I would like to ask you, actually the next question is, this is a personal, like a curiosity thing. So traditionally, most of the folk arts have been like a group activity.
Yeah.
Right. So how come like Baul evolved into a solo act? I mean, I understand that it is for a particular reaching at a particular conscious
Yeah.
level,
Yeah.
but still, I mean, recently I did a audio GAN with Meeti Desai,
Okay.
and the question was, why is classical form in general a solo activity? And the answer was very beautiful, that these are not like, these are more transcendental arts. So just to add to that thought more, this especially is for reaching the divine.
Right.
Right?
Right.
But still there are group activities. Sometimes there's solo.
Yeah.
Most of the
Yeah.
times it's solo. So
Yeah.
can you elaborate on that bit?
Actually, Baul has both. But if you are doing it like a meditation, it has to be solo, right?
Correct.
Because if a song is a teaching and you want to learn the teaching, you cannot do it as a group activity. But also, Bauls are doing it in a group activity in another way.
Okay.
That is, when they get together, they will share songs. So in that becomes a group activity. There are many Baul artists who will perform along with accompanying instruments.
Okay.
Like right now, I am using only one instrument for this podcast, that is the ektara. So the solo bowls, the soloists in bowls, they use ektara, they use a drum that is called as the duggi, which is tied to their waist, and they have anklets in their feet. Because bowls are supposed to surrender their entire body while they are singing. So they are dancing and singing. So that is a solo thing. But to add to it, to enhance it, there are other instruments like the shrikhol, which is a drum instrument, again, percussion instrument, I mean. Then there is an instrument called as dotara, which is like a sarod, so which is used for the musical side.
Okay.
So when they come together, it's like a whole group activity. But because it is a meditative form of art, because it is something which you are learning, like every time I sing a song, I must progress in my mind in that thought. It is that what is expected from me. So though it is a solo activity, it also has a group with it. And people prefer to have their own choices. Like some of them want to be soloists, so they are independent. Some of them have their accompanists with them. And though it is like a solo activity, when the melas happen, it turns into a group activity. And there are certain songs which everybody sings together. So at the end of a Baul performance, what does a Baul do? Even if he is a soloist, what he will do is he will involve all the people who are listening to the songs in the Nam Sankirtan. He will invite them to sing along with him. So that is the extreme state of ecstasy in the Baul music performance, say, where the audience is involved in it and they sing the Naam along with the main Baul singer. So then it turns into a group activity actually. So it's very interesting. Baul has all these facets with it.
Yeah. Is it similar to the name chanting which happens in ISKCON? Is it like connected or is it totally different?
Yes, of course it is the same as it is in ISKCON. But in ISKCON, the faith part is more and the expression bodily, like jumping up and expressing the whole entire being. That is more prevalent.
Achha.
The music part is a little secondary there. Though they use musical instruments and they have a lot of Naam Sankirtan happening with lots of huge, sounds of bells and everything.
Correct.
But Bauls have it in a very musical way. So it is a little different, but it is actually the same. Like just to look at it, it might look different, but the aim is the same.
Yeah. Now since like the Baul, if we can safely say that it's predominantly like a solo activity, how does the improvisation take place? I mean, is it similar to classical music where the artist tries to achieve a trance by just exploring the raga and overall things like that? So how does a Baul musician improvise? I mean, on which thread, on which lines it keeps evolving, how the lyrics change or how it is transferred to the next generation?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question because the answer itself is very intriguing. The Bauls believe, and I have experienced that you have to be very honest when you are singing. So there are days when you are down in your personal life, or there are days when you are extremely happy. So, if you are very honest to yourself, every time you sing the song, it is going to be different. It is like, I don't know how to compare it with anything. Like maybe you can compare it with cooking. I don't know, it's a very strange comparison. But every day you cook. And there are days when the same dish turns out to be like marvelous. You are cooking it the same way every day, but there are some days when it becomes magical. So that's exactly what the bowls say, that it has to be very honest. And if you are very honest to your true self, you cannot repeat yourself, because every day is different. You are growing each day. You are changing each day. Each day your experiences are making you a better person. So if you're talking about improvisation is for the listeners to understand that, oh, this has been improvised. But the singer per se is just being honest to himself or herself.
Wow.
And he lets himself be. You know what I mean? Letting himself be. It is like completely exposing yourself to the space around you, to the music that is within, and to the song. The song is taking you places. Like, interestingly, when I met Parvati Baul, who is my guru now, so when I met her and I asked her, can I learn Baul music from you? She said to me, you come to me in my ashram, let the Ektara decide. Let the Ektara choose you. If the Ektara chooses you, I will teach you. So this is something which is very difficult for a scientific person, like scientific-minded modern person to understand.
Correct.
That how can a thing choose me? But that is what they believe, because they have these kind of philosophies, this kind of mysticism, which is very difficult to, like break down or understand.
I think it's also that they believe that there is a consciousness in everything.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
that was. So is it like you said, it has to be very honest and transparent with yourself, right?
Yeah.
So has it to do with the state of your mind continuously? Because then the artist doesn't have reference points that I had sung in this rag or this pitch.
Yes.
And is it bound in ragas also, or is it like open?
There are very few ragas actually which are used. Most commonly Bhairavi is used, and there are few other ragas also which are used, but they don't stick to the rules of the raga. See, we were talking about classical music also.
Correct.
So in classical music, the trance is the musical trance that I told you. So the musician puts his best to explore the raga and the tal to the best possible way he knows it.
Correct.
So even he is honest. It's not that the classical musician is not honest. He is very honest. And he is very, very sincere to the rag structure, to the development of the rag, the rules of the rag, the grammar, the tal, everything. Like, he is doing a very difficult job also, because he is managing the tal, the sur, the notes, the rag, the expression,
The emotion.
and using his entire being to put out the best music he can.
Correct.
So there, both of them are same. But in Baul, what happens is, you cannot say that, okay, today I will sing this variety of song. I will use this as my tool today. You can't do that. Because if you attempt to do that, you will fail. In the sense, when I started learning, when I started singing Baul, I was first practicing only with the Ektara. So that was fine. I got the hang of it in a while. Okay, then I was given the drum. That made things difficult, because now I have to do 3 different things. I have to sing, I have to play the Ektara, and I have to play the drum also. So there the concentration levels needs to be more. So you have to be more to the focused. So again, that honesty is that what is focus also. Focus and honesty are like the same thing now.
Correct.
And now, after that, I was also asked to dance and sing. So when the state of mind that you're talking about, if my state of mind is not rightly concentrated, my feet won't work. It was very difficult for me to dance and sing and play the instruments in the beginning. And even now, if we are not into regular practice, and the regular practice includes pranayam, yoga, early morning meditation, and voice practice, and in the evenings, regular dance practice. So if that is not done as a daily regime, you cannot perform.
Wow. It sounds very, I don't know, I'm short of words right now.
I would say that it's a very good mental and physical exercise, if you really put it that way.
So, in the past few years of taking interviews and also learning, I see a pattern where a lot of art forms have evolved from the folk art.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so there are 2 parts to this question. One is, like, I had read this beautiful phrase which says, when you don't know Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains.
Right.
When you have learning Zen, rivers are not rivers, mountains are not mountains. And when
Exactly.
you have learned Zen, rivers are rivers, mountains are mountains. So it just goes around
I know,
in
I
a
know.
circle. And one of the instances which I remember of Kumar Gandharva, where he, in his interview, he said that folk art is something which a folk artist can sing, but when it is taken to the next level of the higher understanding, then you need a complete understanding of Hindustani classical to perform that way.
Correct.
Right?
Right.
Similarly, if this is a folk art, there needs a higher understanding of classical music to perform this again.
Yes and no.
Acha, can you explain?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
Because, the bowls that I have met, from whom I have learned songs, they are not trained in classical music. They don't know what raga is. They absolutely do not know what music saregama is.
Okay.
They really don't know it. And when you listen to them, you are taken into a different world. And you have to experience that to believe it. Because just me saying that will not suffice. Because I have experienced it. Like when we go for these bowl retreats, which are like 8-day living workshops with the bowls. We stay with the bowls. We live like them. We eat food that they eat. We follow all their regime. Okay. So when we are with them and when we listen to these bowls, these retreats are places where people from all over the world come, not just Indians. So the first time when I went to this retreat, there is this very old singer called as Kanai Das Mondal. And he's a blind gentleman. So he doesn't see the world anyways, but he sees a different world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when he sang, all of us listening to the song are crying.
Wow.
Okay, irrespective of what religion, what caste, what country, what race, everything, everybody in the space is crying, and everybody is very relieved after crying. Nobody is sad. So when I saw this, I realized that, oh my God, this man doesn't know music, but look what his music has done to us. So how further can I explain that to you? So classical music training can be a tool for me, a person like me, to understand baul more. But that doesn't make me a better baul singer, or because they are not trained in baul classical music, they are better singers, or it's nothing like that.
Okay.
It's just the way they approach to the song. Their approach to the song is not musical. That's with the heart.
Correct.
That's with the emotion. That's with their own being. So then it's a different way of pursuing music only. And they don't say that they are singing music. They say that we speak the song. They don't even say that we sing. They say we speak the song.
It's just lyrical a bit.
Yes. So they don't give importance to the musical part at all. And the beauty is, the musical part is the best in it. So the rawness in it of the folk culture, it's a very organic structure. It's a very raw thing, that like a jungle berry or a jungle flower, which is beautiful, who doesn't even bother whether the flower has bloomed and whether anybody is looking at me. Okay, so that's the blooming of the jungle flower. It's the same in baul music.
But are there chances of being it repetitive, or the listener has to mature enough to understand what to look at?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You yourself have answered your question actually, because it is the way it is. The more intent the listener is, he is also going to go on a journey. Because bauls believe that when they are singing a song, they are on a journey. They are on a mental progressive journey. And if you are intently listening to them, you are also on the journey. And mind you, even if you don't know Bengali, you will experience something which is beyond words. Because that is what I told you, that everybody was crying. They didn't know what the song was about. We knew that it was about Radha pining for Krishna. Okay. But not them. They didn't know it. So then how does it work? It works very organically. I think it is the way they emote. The emotion reaches you. Because it's like watching a foreign film. If you're watching a foreign film without subtitles, you might get the gist of it. You might get the emotion that, oh, she's in pain. You may not know the words, but you will feel the emotion. It's the same with baul. The emotion is the leader. The emotion is the key.
Yeah. Just yesterday, I was showing your videos on the website to my mom and dad also. And my dad said, if you see typically a Bengali music, it sounds a bit sad. There are certain typical typecasted things in a video, if there is a sea or things like that.
Okay.
And what I said is that I think we have to build that taste to listen to it. Otherwise,
Exactly,
it's kind of tough to understand, because like if you just sit and listen to baul music, I don't think it is that form of entertainment also.
It's not a form of entertainment,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if you are very sincere as a listener or as
Yeah.
an onlooker or as an audience,
Yeah,
it is bound to affect you.
correct.
It is bound to affect you.
Yeah.
That's true.
Uttar, I would like to conclude with one last question.
Okay.
I understand there are a lot of things. Maybe we can do a series of like episodes just to
Yeah.
cover baul music in
Yeah,
detail
yeah.
and document. But for this episode, I think this would be the last question, which is, what's the future of baul? I mean, how can we preserve it? What are the steps taken by different performers all around the country, around the
Yeah,
world?
yeah.
How is it being? How are we planning to nurture it and
Yeah.
keep it alive?
Yeah. So in Bengal, the baul tradition is very, very active. There are bauls all over the region, and in villages they are very respected. So their baul is taken care of. And in the year, I think it is 2005, I think, if I'm not mistaken, UNESCO has also taken up baul as a thing to be protected. Like UNESCO has listed out things in India or things all over the world which need to be taken care of, like what do you say, preserve them. So they are funding projects on baul also.
Oh, nice.
And especially Parvati ji, who is my guru, Parvati Baul, who is a baul herself. She's a great sadhika. So she is spreading the message all over the world because she keeps performing all over the world, and people are getting aware of it. In Europe, baul has been very instrumental for many years now.
Oh, nice.
And even in some parts of France, also now America, also there is a cult which is following baul. And why baul will be preserved on its own, I suppose, because it is a message of peace and love. And we all need a lot of peace today.
Yeah,
Because we all are very distressed and all are very, very painful. We are having a lot of painful experiences in life. So baul is a message of love. And right now what I am involved in is I am a disciple of Parvati, and she has an ashram in Bengal, which is called as the Sanatan Siddhashram. So there we are building an ashram where we will protect the baul tradition. And what we are doing is we are also looking after the bauls who are like old now, because the city life and the city things are coming into the villages.
Correct.
So bauls basically live on madhukari. Madhukari is like begging, like
Bhikshu.
We don't call it begging actually. They are singing songs for us, and they are in return they are being given household things. So they are living on that. So that tradition also needs to be safeguarded. So there are ashrams which are working on that, and Parvati's her organization and students, all of us are trying to support all these little baul akhadas, as they are called. The ashrams, they are called as baul akhadas. So there is a funding which is happening for them.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And how, like, if someone wants to learn it, someone wants to pursue it, what would be the steps like?
Actually, there is no prerequisite. If you have a very sincere mind and you want to attain that state of bliss, or you want to achieve that divine love, you are free to go and learn baul from the masters themselves. But
Okay.
like if you ask me, I am yet not qualified to teach baul per se.
And how long you have been learning?
I have been with Parvati ji now for the past 6 years.
6 years.
I've been following her like 10 years behind that. But like learning from her has been 6 years now.
And what, like, again, it's very difficult to put in a bucket.
Yeah.
But still, classical music, traditionally, if you learn, it takes 15, 20 years.
Yes.
In fact, some of the artists have started performing when they have practiced for 40 years, right?
I know, yeah.
Similarly, here, is there any time frame or...
Not exactly.
Is there any... I'm asking a wrong question, but is there any commercial side to this in performances, or it's always a baitak kind of a thing?
No. There is no commercial aspect in that way. It's not like a very in thing, like which is paid very well or something like that. But it is basically preserved in the villages. So it is very much active there. And in the villages, they don't expect much.
Correct.
They don't expect much as a performer because they don't consider themselves to be performers. So in that way, commercially, it is nowhere. But for a person to learn baul music and sing it, it will always depend on what the master will tell you. Because they are following the very, very proper old tradition of Guru Shishya Parampara yet today.
Very nice.
So they won't tell you that, okay, you're ready. You'll have to wait for, you can't ask them that, am I ready? There will be a day when they will say that, okay, you are ready. Because I was trained into music, and when Parvati heard me, she thought that yes, I can perform. She gave me permission and I perform baul music. But when she will decide for whom, or when the master will decide for whom, there is no time frame. It may be 2 months, it may be 5 years. It depends.
Yeah.
It depends from person to person. It is very individualistic.
Correct.
Because unless and until you really bring out your soul out in the open, you cannot do it. So the master is the one who decides.
Brilliant, brilliant. I think this is a good note to end this. There are a lot of things which are food for thought here, and obviously people interested can log on to your website also to see some of the demo videos, and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube as well, I believe.
Right.
Any concluding thoughts you would like to add?
Maybe a song.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Sure. So I think, I'll just take a sign off from here and ask Uttara to end with a brilliant song.
Sure.
Thank you.
Kichu din mone mone, kichu din mone mone ghorer kone, boli shamer pirit rakh gopone, ইশারায় কইবি কথা গোঠে মাঠে, দেখিস যেন কেউ না শোনে, কেউ না বুঝে, কেউ না জানে, কিছুদিন মনে মনে। শামকে যখন পড়বে মনে, চাইবি কালো মেঘের পানে, শামকে যখন পড়বে মনে, চাইবি কালো মেঘের পানে, রান্নাশালে কন্দবি বসে, পিচের কাঠ দিয়ে উনুনে, কিছুদিন মনে মনে, কিছুদিন মনে মনে।
And that's it from today's Gyan session. Catch us on iTunes, Saavn, Stitcher, or any podcasting app you use. Do rate us on iTunes and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Stay tuned for more Gyan on audiogyan.com. Till then, bye.
Hello! It's been a great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On This Round is on Me, Gauri is joined by Shweta Nanda. They talk about the financial independence and how it is to be a woman entrepreneur. On Anish Thing, Anish welcomes ultra-marathon runner Shivani Gharat. Shivani shares her journey of how she ran her first marathon, the mindset of a runner, and what it actually takes to run a full marathon. On Cock and Bull, Cyrus, Naveen, Akash and Shreyas talk about the Korean band BTS serving in the military and its repercussions. On Think Fast, Varun and Suchita discuss Wing Greens and their latest acquisitions and about the Indian sexual wellness market. And on Shunya One, Sheila Datya is joined by Dinika Bhatia, CEO and founder of Nuttigrities. They talk about coming from a business family and Dinika's journey in creating healthy and guilt-free snacking. Once again, don't forget to visit our merch store on ivmpodcast.com. We have some exciting new merch out there for you. Also, do follow us on social media. We are IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And do remember to spread the word about these shows and any other shows you might be listening to. Appreciate them, rate them, and review them wherever you are listening to them. You can also check out all our other shows on youtube.com/IVM Podcasts. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week: Volvo XC40 Recharge, Bumble, Heads Up for Tails, Kotak Privy League program, and HDFC Mutual Fund. Thanks, guys. Without you, this would not be possible.
Do you often find yourself surrounded by conversations about Web3, blockchain, NFTs, DAOs? What are these terms and how do they affect our future on the internet? So many questions, but don't worry, we've got answers to all your questions. Hi, I'm Eklavya Bhattacharya, and on our show Future Proofing, we try to decode the impact of these future technologies on various industries with experts and tech enthusiasts. Tune into new episodes coming out every Thursday on the IVM Podcast app and the website, or wherever you get your podcasts from.